Let me make clear first, I really am not in a position to tell the state what to do. That's not my function. What I can do is say, given what we understand about the disaster, where do I see policy holes, if you will, whoever should be really moving in there. And I've been working with San Francisco, with Patrick Ottolini, to try and say, where are the big holes? What are the things that we really need to do? And I think there's one general issue that human society is psychologically much better prepared to do response than mitigation. There's been a study that suggests we're willing to spend 8 times as much for response as we are for mitigation, and that every dollar spent on mitigation saves you $8. So maybe there's some sort of parallel there. But clearly, we would be better off doing the mitigation, but it's hard for us emotionally to get there. When we look at where are the biggest holes, I think we can say the fact that our old buildings are going to take out our homes and our businesses, the fact that we are building new buildings to help us crawl out alive and not be usable, and then the fact of our lifelines. Patrick and I just went through a thing and said those are the 3 big issues that both cities feel like they're grappling with. The lifeline ones is one of the most difficult. There is this council in San Francisco. This is a place where the state could clearly have a role. We do a lot of lifeline coordination on response. We don't do it on mitigation. We know exactly where our lifelines cross the fault and are going to be broken, and we've done nothing about it. So that would be a place where we have a real function. On the new buildings, if a community were to say, we want immediate occupancy, we believe it's worth investing 1% to 2% more on the cost of a project to get that better performance, and that really is all it is, there is no model code. You can't get a model code for immediate occupancy. They only exist for life safety. So that would be, and the state has a law mandating which building codes communities have to adopt as a minimum. And we could consider looking at whether or not in an urban area, if you have a dense enough construction, then the cost of you not retrofitting or you having a life safety only building has an impact on your neighbors. So there is a philosophical reason why in a dense urban environment, a higher building code is for the whole social good, because the impact of a bad building has more impact on those around them in a dense setting. And that gets then back to the retrofitting problem, which is exactly this. And I think that what's striking to me is that the cost of retrofitting is considered the responsibility of an owner, but the cost of not retrofitting falls on everybody around them as well. So we say the owners got to do all this, but when they don't do it, the cost of not retrofitting hurts their neighbors, hurts their tenants, hurts the users of the street in front of them. And it gets back to this thing that when you have a dense distribution of buildings, the impact of a bad building falls on everyone. And so, when I was in discussions with the city about this issue, it was like philosophically, one could easily argue that government, tenants, and owners all have a stake in a better building and all have a stake in that retrofitting requirement. But obviously it's a very difficult thing to achieve, and the city did not find a way to come up with government funding to support the others, and they ended up splitting between the owners and the tenants. But all the rest of us will be affected by whether or not that building gets done as well. So those are sort of my succinct thoughts about this.
I hate to ask again and not get an answer, so I'm not going to ask about the dollar amounts, but
yeah, I can't, I don't know the dollar amounts, right? That's just not information that I have. But in terms of, relative distribution of the losses that you're preventing with the retrofit, probably the owner has the single largest benefit to be gained. They keep their building. The tenants being able to continue their lives or their businesses, probably next. But it's very clear that there's some significant percentage, something less than a third by that argument, but something significant that government gains by not losing the function of the building within the urban environment.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Safe flight.
Yeah.
Ms. Curry, if you can please continue now with the early warning systems.
And actually, it's great timing-wise, because that actually is a really important mitigation initiative that we have the potential for embarking on, especially when we're talking about lifelines and the automated actions that could come into place to really preserve that infrastructure to the best we can and prevent some of the damages like fire or transmission problems that could occur. There's huge potential there. It's not the solution for everything, but it's definitely an advancement. So, you know, the technology for early warning has been underway and has been being worked on for many years, and it's really advanced and evolved. We know other countries are doing it. We know that this exists and this is possible. Cal OES came into the fold with the signing of SB 135 that put us in charge with implementing this for California. And I think that was due to the fact that we have this relationship already with partner agencies, federal, state, academic, in our regular course of our business for emergency management, that it made sense for us to pull this together because it's a lot of the same partnerships that we would be leveraging to make it happen. So the technology is there. It continues to be tested and improved. And a lot of users are participating in demonstration systems, so that as we figure out how to govern this and how to finance it and all those things for early warning, the technology is getting to a place where we know that when it all comes together, that it'll be ready for the public. So there wasn't really an organization structure that had been contemplated that would serve early warning the best. The current seismic network program has been very successful as a partnership, really been by committee and in sort of a informal through memorandum, a bunch of agencies coming together, all contributing actual technology, so sensors in the ground, people, and to make California able to get real-time earthquake information, and that's what we call the California Integrated Seismic Network. Early warning will be built on that, so that's a real positive that we already have that foundation, but there's a lot more to early warning. We've got this connectivity to the private sector industry to take automated actions. What does that actually mean? What are the widgets that's going to take? That's really a complex venture. How do we articulate this to the public? It's a new warning system. They haven't seen it before. The public knows what to do, hopefully, in an earthquake. When you feel the ground shake, we drop, cover, and hold on. We practice that with Shakeout, the big public preparedness drill, but also in our education. This would be largely the same, but what does it mean when you get that notice, and what do the words actually say on your smartphone to tell you 20 seconds from now an earthquake's going to happen? We have to make sure that people do the right thing. So that's an education component that's really important. And then the distribution of the warning. We've been talking a lot with the wireless industry. We don't take for granted that there's just miraculously enough bandwidth, to support early warning. We know there's challenges with outages, even in just a run-of-the-mill disaster where the usage goes up. And so, what does that mean for the industry? How do we actually get this into people's hands? What's it going to take? So we've been working on those components to get organized, to bring in the partners that are working on early warning technology and create a plan for California that's sustainable, that has a logical rollout, cost associated with it, and then a sustainable plan to actually fund it so that it stays in perpetuity in California and continues to improve. Standards and reliability are very important for this, because if we're asking industry to use this technology to automate actions, they need to know that it's for the most part going to be accurate information. There could be false positives, and what's the rate of that, so that's understood ahead of time. So that's really what Cal OES and our partners, many of them are here, have been focused on, is to identify roles and responsibilities. What is an organization structure, and anticipate as much as possible. Like, if we're going to present this to the public, have we thought through absolutely everything so that we can make sure that the benefit is aligned with the investment into it, but also that we've really thought through everything that the public deserves as we deploy this early warning system, that we've got it as ready as possible for them to use. So we're again, technology's there. We're in a very advantageous position in that we already have a seismic network to build upon in California. The public, first responders understand it. They're used to seeing it. It won't be that different. So we're really at a great advantage to deploy this. We've got to figure out some of these more complex issues, which we're working very hard on, and look forward to working with you as we move forward very soon to make this happen in California.
So from what I understand, the program is about roughly $38 million, of which there's been some nonprofit grants. Mm-hmm. There's still a need for another $23 million to complete the program, and then on an ongoing basis annually, the maintenance is
Right.
roughly between 15 to 20 million.
Yeah, that's about right. There's been numbers that because the USGS has a national charge, so they are looking at the West Coast and what that's going to take. Certainly, California is a chunk of that, but also then there's we want to articulate what the California piece is. So yes, there's a build-up cost as you've articulated, and then ongoing maintenance, which is the mechanics of the equipment, making sure that it's up and running all the time, that people are working on it, because this is a 24/7 operation. So there is a build-up to augment the existing sensor system and an ongoing maintenance cost that we've identified.
Okay. Has any specific reason why this hasn't been a priority up until now? Not to put you in a difficult spot, but given all the different competing challenges and needs, is potentially this year a good year to look at the budget augmentation for this?
Well, certainly you're familiar with the history. We're operating off the existing statute, which asks us to look for non-general fund sources, which we believe the case can be made that for long-term sustainability, that makes a lot of sense. This is distributed, so that if we do get into precarious financial situation, we build in that stability, and we've thought of that. So we're operating on that as the long-term plan. Whether this year is there's a change to that to do some upfront. We're aware that that's been proposed. We look forward to working with the legislature on that and to see what happens. But, again, we're really taking the long view as well to look at a sustainable, sensible plan to, finance this, to attribute, the costs and benefits, because we know that in the long run, we will have those fluctuations. So we need to find something that's a stable solution over time. So, and we'll see what happens this year for maybe the one time or short term.
And just a question before that I had about the interface. I'm assuming Ms. Curry already spoke to it to some extent. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, she's very good with it. The California Integrated Seismic Network, of which OES is a member and CGS is a member, and there's actually about 18 members, but there's 5 core members who operate the largest networks in the state, and it's on that network that the early warning system will be based. It will be another product from that network, and it's going to be a very good product. You asked why it took so long. It's that our geology in the state is quite a bit different from the geology in the rest of the countries that have this, and so it makes ours a little more complicated naturally, but there's some very high technology involved, and a very good system has evolved out of that.
Great. Well, with that, is there any public testimony?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Tim Schott on behalf of the San Francisco Area Rapid Transit District. And BART has been involved at the federal level, participated in a summit, Earthquake Resilience Summit on February 2nd, regarding early warning systems and trying to help support greater funding for earthquake and early warning technologies. BART is the first transit system in the U.S. to have an early warning system that went in March of 2012. And so we really just wanted to offer our appreciation, suggest that some of the bills being considered now might be great things to be working on, and offer to help where we can be of assistance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Shinsky on behalf of the Structural Engineers Association of California. We certainly appreciate the Chair's ongoing leadership in this area. Our 3,000-member organization of engineers certainly knows about and understands a lot of the intertwined issues involved here, and we look forward to participating in improving the seismic resilience in the state. A couple thoughts briefly just in thinking about state policy. One is that, at least from our observations of the San Francisco ordinances and now the upcoming ones in Los Angeles that are taking effect, is that mandates appear to work. it's not, regardless of how one feels about them philosophically, it does seem to be the case that owners will comply if they can be assured that everyone around them has to comply as well. That is, no one is gaining some sort of competitive advantage by not doing so. Secondly, if subsidies or some other, or tax credits or some other inducement is on the table to encourage retrofits in other areas. A couple thoughts on that. One is you want to make sure that the recipients of those inducements are that, in a sense, that public benefit are those that are also providing the most public benefit. I'm talking particularly when you get beyond the strategies around single-family homes, and you're talking about other structures. You want to make sure that the owners who get the benefit are those who either need the most financial help or they themselves are providing the most public benefit. And you want to incentivize, as we've heard about, maybe more than just basic safety. We're moving into an area where we talk a lot about the usability of the buildings immediately after events, and so thinking beyond basic life safety in your program might be helpful too. We're an organization of engineers, and so we always want to immediately dive in and talk about the technical side, but we think in terms of when you think about state policy, there is value in ensuring that terms like at-risk are well defined, what exactly the building performance standards you're asking for are well defined, building types. I mean, we all know what we mean when we say unreinforced masonry or soft story structures. We have an intuitive feel for that. But when you talk about non-ductile concrete, really that's just the opening of a conversation for most engineers about that building. Finally, we would suggest that there are certain things you can do in terms around strengthening engineering licensure requirements, that would improve the performance of new buildings, perhaps those that are of high importance or complexity or are critical to a community's economic or social vitality. You could strengthen the licensing requirements for the design of those structures. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Very briefly, Nicolo DeLuca. I was here earlier with the council member for City of Oakland and other cities such as Berkeley, Emeryville, San Leandro. Looking forward to working with you and your staff and others to think of ways that the state can create some type of seed funding for cities so they could have like revolving loan funding programs. So thank you very much for this sharing. Looking forward to working with you and others, and thank you.
Thank you. If that's the last of the comments, I just wanted to say thank you again to all the participants and all the agencies that were here, as well as the representatives from various cities on giving an update on what they've been doing. This is something very important, as well as very important to this committee. I look forward to working with all of you, whether on the legislative front or on the budget front, to advance the mitigation component, not necessarily wait for the response. So thank you very much all for being here.